Vex the Nameless by R. Gavris.
The first problem with the baby was that his ears were pointed. This was by no means the last problem posed by his existence, but it was the first, and it set the tone for the rest. Felicitas Quarce heard the baby wailing from the anteroom where he paced, but he did not hear the midwives exclaiming in triumph. And because he did not hear them exclaim, and because his wife had borne 2 sons in mortal peril of her life, he hurried into the birthing chamber. The midwives looked at the floor, at the baby, at their own bloody hands, anywhere but at their lord. And that caused his heart to sink even before his wife lifted her head or the baby squalled again, for he knew the faces of sympathy and sorrow, and those were not the faces that avoided his eyes. They were the faces of horror, of fear, and of shame. But his wife's face was different. Noemi Quarce looked upon her husband with defiance. She was drawn with weariness and weakness, but her spine straightened as he stared upon her progeny. "What," he said quietly, "is this abomination?" "That is my son," Noemi said. "You will not touch him." Felicitas looked upon his wife's bastard. The infant's skin was the color of sand in the shade, the color of coffee with milk. It was not the dark brown of true coffee, as his mother's was, and his ears, as have been mentioned, were not shaped at all as his mother's were. Several puzzles resolved for Felicitas in that moment. He understood why his wife had suddenly begun complaining of her male fairy slave and then sold him. He understood the month of unwanted passion around that same time, and her usual coldness thereafter. And he understood why she had not encouraged their sons to touch her swelling belly, to feel the developing infant move, to anticipate the new child as she had taught the first boy to anticipate the second. Felicitas Quarce walked out of the birthing chamber without another word. 3 weeks later, he named the colicky little half-breed Vexation, and silenced his wife's protest harshly. He did not speak of the child otherwise, leaving him to grow up in his mother's chambers and away from the rest of the household. When Vexation was 5 years of age, Felicitas attempted to sell him. Noemi, for the first time since bearing her bastard, defied her husband ferociously, and informed him that if she lost Vex, she would publish her shame to the world and then leave him. So Felicitas endured and immured the pair, and let it be known to society that his wife had grown sick with a wasting illness. To his household, he made it clear that she was not to be spoken of, and that the little Vexation was not to be seen outside her rooms. And thus Vex grew up with his mother, and his half-brothers grew up without her, and without knowing the nature of the boy that had shattered their family.